You got the video, Mom?
Tyler
Yeah.
finished the marathon.
Hold that down.
Right behind
I am.
him. Also, all of them finishing 26.2. Nice work out there.
You can do it, Hank.
Go ahead, Ed. Finish strong, Hayden.
Good job, Hank.
You are here.
Let's go, buddy. Good job, Hank. Good job.
Nice work, nice work.
Good job.
Way to finish that marathon. Good job.
Good job, Hank.
Good job, Hayden.
Good job, Hank.
Way to go, Hayden.
Alright, so now that you know I'm not lying and I didn't just make that up, let's get into it. Now, I will say this entire video is just going to be about willpower, discipline, and mindset. Things like that are more mental than physical. I can get into the whole training aspects of it, the whole biological factor, all the, different health ideas and methodology that I put into play, but I think I talk about that enough, and that can be a whole other thing. So the very first thing I want to talk about, and this is the most important thing, I think, is the establishment of the idea that I'm not different. I'm not built different. I don't have some silly warrior gene or some gene that makes me a kick-ass runner or some gene that makes it so I can't feel pain. I'm a completely normal-ass person. All right. And I think that's a really important idea to hammer down, because I think that's an excuse people give themselves a lot. They look at other people doing great things and they just think like, they're just born to be great, or, they're just kind of born like that or whatever. Like, I don't know, basketball players being tall or something. People thinking they can't achieve their goals because they just weren't born with it. But I want to establish this. I want to make this very clear. I'm not special in any way, okay? Like, a little over like a year ago, I used to hate running. I used to hate it so much, okay? And that whole time, it's not like I was loving that. That whole time I was running, that like whole experience, that was like almost 5.5 hours of just like boredom, agony, pain. It was horrible. It was raining the whole time. It was extremely cold, and the whole time my training regimen, I was training for heat. It was not fun. It was nothing I enjoyed. It was nothing I was genetically predisposed to be good at. Okay? I was completely normal going into it, and I set up a plan, and with discipline, and with determination, and with intelligence, I executed that plan over a very long course of time, and I was very patient, and I ended up achieving it. Okay, and that is the main takeaway of this video. If you want to, if there's any one thing that I want you to leave this video with, I want you to understand that you don't have to be genetically predisposed or whatever. You don't have to have a warrior gene to achieve what you think is great. Okay, I'm a normal ass person, and I just decided I wanted to do this. I erected a plan, I learned about it, and I did it. All right, and that's the simplicity of it. Okay, there's no special training regimen I employed. There's no like special pill I took or something. Okay, it's as simple as that. All right, and I think that should be not just informative but invigorating to people, because people think, when people imagine their goals, it's so like inconceivable, and to me, running 26 miles straight, that's inconceivable to me. That's not what I was doing though. The same thing you do during a marathon is the same thing you do with any other goal that takes a long time. You cut it into bite-sized pieces and you take it down one at a time, and with every single part of it you learn from it. You may fail some parts, you may get down on some of these steps, but what you do is you take that information, and as you go into the next step, now you're armed. You're armed with more information, and you can use that to do even better in the next step. And that's just like, people, they get intimidated by their goals, which is a good thing. If you're not intimidated by your goals, I don't think they're even worthy goals. If you know you're gonna achieve it, like when I showed up to the starting line, I genuinely didn't know if I was gonna make it or not. Okay, but that's what makes it worth doing. Could you imagine, so I'm like a sophomore in high school, could you imagine if I rolled up to an elementary school, like some cross-country meet, and I'm getting ready to race a bunch of first graders or something? Obviously I know I'm going to whoop their asses, but And that's why it's not meaningful. That's why nobody would care or find that impressive. If you know you're going to accomplish what's set out in front of you, what the hell's even the point in doing it? It's just a chore at that point. It's not a challenge. Could you imagine how boring sports would be to watch if you knew exactly what team was going to win? Like, the whole point is that you don't. The whole point is that you're scared. The whole point is that you're uncertain. The whole point is that you don't know if you're going to be running through the finish line with flying colors and righteousness and valor, or if you're going to be, dropped unconscious near the end or something, I mean, like, that's what makes it worth doing. That's what courage is. That's what bravery is. It's looking at that uncertainty. It's staring at it in the eye and not cowering in front of it, but being invigorated by it and going against it, defying it, And I think that's an extremely important thing to understand, okay? The uncertainty, the difficulty, the discomfort, that's what makes it worth doing. All right, and that's something you got to learn to be invigorated by. When you've got these these huge goals, right? You don't just, how do I say this? It's something of a balance. You don't want it to be so crazy to where it's just like okay, there's no way I can do this. You got to be realistic, of course. You can't be thinking there's no way I can do this. This is genuinely too much, okay? But there should be just the right amount of uncertainty, just the right amount of discomfort and fear that you should be invigorated by that. People like I remember for some reason, so the course I ran, it was the Spokane Marathon, October 12th, 2025. And at the 22-mile mark, there was this fun little thing. It was called Doomsday Hill. And it was this it was, it wasn't like hell, it wasn't horrible, but it's at the 22-mile mark, okay? It's a cheesy-ass name. It doesn't last too long, but it's at the 22-mile mark. If you've ever ran 22 miles, the last thing you want to do is go up something like that, okay? But when I was looking at that, I think I literally growled at the bottom of it because I was fucking invigorated by it. I wasn't going to let some hill with some cheesy-ass name knock me down. No, you need to look, some of these challenges, you need to look at this challenge. You need to look at things that are there to scare you, and you need to just fucking run in spite of it. It's like, you need to be, that should make you angry. That shouldn't make you scared. When you get that feeling of oh shit, this challenge, this might be insurmountable, no, your reaction, it shouldn't be oh no, this is gonna be hard. It should be all right, come on, motherfucker, let's go, It's like, and I think, and that's one of the ways I could run this. It's just that mindset. It's just what is this? What is this challenge, right? People think of these challenges, they're discomfort, they're uncomfortable, they're horrible, okay? But that's what makes it worth doing. I know it sounds kind of cliche, I know it sounds kind of standard, that nothing worth doing ever came easy, okay? But you think about that, it's like, imagine if nobody finds doing one push-up impressive. It's because everybody can do that. It's not uncomfortable, it's easy, okay? People find running a marathon impressive, or, winning like a wrestling tournament really impressive, because there's a lot of discomfort. There's a lot of pain and challenge and just discomfort that goes into that, okay? And that's what makes it worth doing. And that should invigorate you when you're working on your goals, when you're accomplishing great things. When you think about that discomfort, you shouldn't be torn down by it. If anything, you should be not just invigorated, but grateful for it. Because that's the thing that feeling, that discomfort, that pain, that agony sometimes, that's what makes it worth doing. If that wasn't there, you wouldn't want to do it anyway. So when it does come there, so when you do start feeling that, be grateful, be invigorated by that. That's what makes it worth doing. That's what makes it impressive in the first place, And it's, there's some, and that's one of the biggest mindset changes, is some people, they get knocked down when they see these massive goals in front of them, these towering ambitions that are looming over them, right? But it's just, these are two completely different kinds of people, the people who mentally close up, the people, they witness a problem, they witness challenge, they witness ambition that's looming over them, and they close down, they get scared, they make up excuses why they can't do it. And that's one of the things, that's why I hammer this down. That's the very first thing I said, is that I'm a normal ass guy. I don't have some warrior gene, I'm not built different, I'm not him, I'm not the main character, or any kind of garbage you want to say, okay? And that's the kind of excuses people will use as, you know, as reason not to go after these goals, you know? Nobody wants to admit, I'm too scared, I'm too much of a bitch, so I'm just gonna, you know, not go achieve my goals, not go tackle my ambitions, right? No, it's easier for people to make up some garbage excuse why they can't do it than to just go and do it, you know? But that's why I hammer that. There is no excuse. Motherfucker, you've got no excuse. A normal ass kid, a 15-year-old, do you understand? Like, if anything, maybe I'm not a normal ass kid, but I'm not like fit with the warrior gene. I'm fit with, like, you know, like puberty, like in the middle of growing, you know, like, you know how hard, you know, like all the disadvantages a kid my age has doing something like that, you know? Motherfucker, you've got no excuse. And it doesn't have to be a marathon. I'm not saying, you know, I could run a marathon, so you should go run a marathon. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if a normal ass kid, someone with maybe even disadvantages, could do this, I'm a normal ass person just like you. You might even have advantages over me. You got no excuses, motherfucker. That's the thing, all right? People want to just... It's crazy. People are like fixed with this mindset. It's not like instinct for people to be invigorated by challenge. I feel like it's instinct for people to just like scramble for excuses. Why, you know, I can't do this because of this. I can't get started because of this. Oh, well, what if people make fun of me? What if this? What if that? Shut the fuck up. You're gonna be fine. You know, like, you gotta just, no, like, anything, any like special trait that you think other people have, they don't, all right? Unless it's literally just like genetic height for basketball or something, you know. I mean, if you know, you don't want to go for basketball tryouts because you're like 4'6", okay, you know, maybe you've got something going there. But that's like 1% of ambitions, okay? The 99% of other reasons and circumstances are total bullshit, you know? Like it's just... Any person you think is special or built for something, they're probably not, you know? It's like they're just probably not. You're probably just making that up for an excuse when you really think about that. Like, I don't know, I'll try to think of some examples. Shit, okay, I don't know. I can't think of anything off the top of my head. But, so yeah, I'll move on to the next idea. It's not just like mindset and discipline, and like I said, this is about like the mental aspect of achieving goals, right? You have to be intelligent, okay? You don't just go, you know, you don't just go in balls blazing and give it your all. No, you gotta be really, really intelligent, okay? I think more so, especially for distance running, you gotta be more mentally fit than you gotta be physically fit, okay? I'm not just saying you gotta have discipline and willpower and be able to push through the pain. No, I mean like actual intelligence, okay? You have to be able to process information from every single step along the way, like I was talking about earlier, okay? When you fail, you know, some, I don't know, roid-raged, you know, muscly dumbass, you know, he's probably just gonna get angry and go, I don't know, punch his girlfriend or something. But okay, but an intelligent person like me, and I'm not afraid to glaze myself here. After doing what I did, I'm pretty damn confident that I have the agency to be talking good about myself here, okay? Like when there'd be so many times I would fail. There'd be so many times where I thought I could have done better when I was training, when I was doing 18 milers, 20 milers, 22 milers, times where I thought I was gonna fail. Times I actually did fail. There was this one route. It's the one route I ever really had to cut short. It was a route called Aquatic Hell. It was in the midst of summer along a river. That's where it got its name. And it was meant to be a 16 miler, and I had to turn around, I had to turn around at like the 8 mile point, and it ended up being like a 10 miler at the end. Okay, that was the one route I really failed. All right, but from that, I wasn't just defeated by that. I wasn't just thinking I was shit or something. I compiled and cataloged every single issue I had with it. Okay. At the end, I was getting dizzy. My shoes were messed up. I was, losing motor coordination. I was getting too hot. I was getting thirsty. I was compiling all this, and I was putting it on a board, and I was thinking, how can we solve this? And that's one of the things about achieving goals. It's not always like, how like movies depict it and stuff. There's not like a bunch of badass music playing at the finish line. There's not like cameras on you and all this dramatic bullshit and this plot armor when you're in pain. No, when you're in pain, it's just pain. Like, it's not exciting, it's not awesome. Like, when you go to the gym, for example, people on social media or something, they're not gonna record themselves, like, resting, but anybody who's ever gone to the gym knows that the majority of it is literally just resting. If you're doing it right, after a set, you rest for you do a set for maybe like a minute at most. I don't even know what you'd be doing for a minute, maybe like 30 seconds, or like 30 seconds to a minute, and then you're just resting, for multiple minutes, sometimes several minutes, depending on the intensity of the set. It's like, nobody records that though. Nobody talks about that. Nobody talks about the boring part. So people see all this stuff depicted on media. All they see is the victory. All they see is the very end, and then they get into it and it's like, oh, well, this is boring, this sucks. But, okay, like, compiling and catalog and analyzing what went wrong, that's like the most important part. Like I've said, learning's the most important habit because all your results are based on what you objectively do. All results are based on actions, and actions are based off what you know. How are you gonna, do something different if you don't even know what to do different? And how are you gonna know what to do different if you don't analyze what went wrong in the first place? Okay, like, there are so many things I applied, so many different, like, physical health factors that I applied during this, okay? And you gotta be able to, like, I don't know if you'd call it intelligence. It's not just intelligence, but like a kind of like relentlessness, not to just be broken down and battered down by failure, but being able to take that as information, There truly is no such thing as failure, I think, unless you fail the thing you've been training for, then every single failure during the training isn't failure. It's like, if I actually failed the marathon, I passed out, for whatever reason, I just didn't finish, okay, that would actually be failure. I would be broken by that, like, that would actually be failure, okay? But if I fail a 16-miler or something, and I get a shitload of information that I can use to augment my performance on the next 16-miler, that's not failure, man. That's information. Imagine you're listening to a coach. A coach tells you X, Y, and Z. You apply X, Y, and Z. It works, and you get better. That's awesome. Well, that's learning. That's listening to a coach. You're learning and getting better. Okay, imagine if you go on a run or anything. You do anything, any kind of training session, and you fail. But from that failure, you learn X, Y, and Z, and you apply X, Y, and Z to the next training session. You learn from it, and you get better. How are those any different? How are those any different? Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how you acquired the information. What matters most are the results, the objective results that you can see. And in both of these scenarios, whether you learn it from a coach or you learn it from failure, man, you still learn X, Y, and Z, and you still get that much better. There's like this idea that failure is like something that you should be broken down by. It's just not that's just not true. It's that idea. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. If you really didn't die, like if you get injured or something, okay, well then you're a fucking idiot. There's not really a lot to learn from that. I remember one time I was on a bridge and I was trying to like, I was on this bridge, and bridges, they've got like the sidewalks on the other side of them, but they've got like those barriers, road here, barrier here, sidewalk here. I was trying to hop one of these, and I planted my right foot down, and my right foot, it slid forward, so I was trying to plant it down and hop over it with my right foot on the ground, but when I tried to plant my right foot, it just slid on gravel, and my knee just slid, like, right into the concrete barrier, and I ended up being injured for days. There's nothing to learn from that. Like, that's just that's just stupid. You know, that's actual failure. Like that's a failure of intellectualism and like common sense. But oh God, what was I even talking about? You know, like failure is it's just information. And again, I know that sounds really cliche. I know that sounds like, you know, just something that, you know, people hear all the time. Well, you know, you either win or you get new information. But I'm telling you, that is actually right. And I hate using platitudes, I hate using cliches, because I think if they worked, everybody would be successful, because these things are fucking everywhere. You just look up like inspirational quotes or something, you see all these, you know, it'll be in cursive, it'll have like Usain Bolt behind it or something, it'll have like a bunch of like vignette and Photoshop around it, like just, you know, just goofy ass stuff. It's everywhere, and if it worked, everybody would be successful, okay? So I think, you know, that's why it doesn't work, and that's why I don't want to use it. But I'm telling you, stuff like that, like being able to intelligently analyze failure, and not even failure, being able to intelligently analyze any performance and glean and interpret information from it, and then being able to use this said information as like a weapon in the next training session, that's intelligence. And that's what you need to be able to do, is not just get physically better, not just make physical adaptation every single time you go out and train, you know, not just get to physical failure, give your body sleep and protein and let your muscles recover, but being able to intelligently, consciously analyze with your brain what's going on, what could be improved, what's going really well and should be bolstered more. You know, intelligence is so important. And again, I think the mental is, like, for distance running at least, the mental aspect is more important than the physical aspect. Because again, everything you do is based off what you know, and being able to intelligently analyze your performance and glean information from it, you know, that allows you to do more. That allows you to change. That allows you to augment and modify your performance. All right. Now, another thing I had, another kind of mindset, is the idea of failure being an option. You know, like, as you go and go, as you progress and progress, okay, constantly, you're gonna have this idea that, like, how do I say this? Like, when you're running or when you're training, some people have the, like, I used to have this, the idea in your brain that, like, failure is an option, right? Like, oh man, if push comes to shove, if shit hits the fan, I'll just tap out, you know, I'll just give up or something, okay? But you almost have to, like, rewire your brain and, like, remove the parts in your brain that even propose that as an idea. It's like, it's the same way as, like, when you need to go to the grocery store, you think, oh, I'll take a car. You don't think, oh, I'll start levitating, I'll flap my arms and I'll fly there. Well, that's stupid. That's not an option. Obviously, you can't just fly to the grocery store, okay? But you need to make failure like flying. Does that make sense? In the same way you think about flying to the grocery store, ridiculous, there's no way you're gonna do that. That's how you need to think about failure too. You need to carve out that part of the brain that allows you to think that that's even an option, okay? It's like, you know, like during summer training, man, dude, there were some days, man, I looked like a drug addict some of these days. I was like running to the gym with my backpack on. It was like 100 degrees out. I purposely go at like 4 p.m. when it was really hot. It was like 100 degrees out. I was running across like asphalt and pavement, barefoot, like in shorts and a t-shirt, running to the gym, and then I'd run back. And it was just like, just crazy stuff like that every time. Not once, every time. Like, when you're doing something like that, or especially like running in winter or something, you know, you're always gonna have, or at least like if you're starting out, you're always gonna have this looming idea like, okay, you know, I could just fail. I could just stop here. We could just be done with this, okay? But the more and more you train, and the more and more you just ignore that, here's the thing. Your brain doesn't want to waste resources. Your brain doesn't want to waste resources on a thought and a mindset that never actually allows action to flourish. Does that make sense? It's like, and you know, that's how you like break an addiction or something. That's how you break that habit. Your brain is constantly like putting up dopamine, like, you know, wanting you like, go do that thing, you know, go 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 watch porn or something. You know, your brain's got those like dopamine pathways online for that habit, but the more and more you just decline that and you consciously use willpower to just say no to that, then eventually the brain's like, okay, we're using all this dopamine to try to get you to do this action, but you're not doing it. We're not going to waste resources anymore. We're tapping out. And the same thing, you know, that like porn watching example, that's the same thing with failure. The brain, it'll constantly like, you know, I think waste resources on the idea that like, hey, you know, we can fail, just, you know, pull over to the side, just go to the air-conditioned building, just put your shoes on, you know, put your gloves on, you know, stay home today or something. You know, your brain will constantly use these resources to try to make you do that, but the more and more you deny that, more and more you say no to that, then the brain eventually it's just going to realize like, oh shit, okay, we keep on trying to make this guy trying to quit, we keep on trying to make this guy do this thing, we're wasting all these resources, we're done. This is no longer even an option. Okay, and I've basically like rewired my brain almost like in the same way I think about flying to the grocery store, I think about failure. Like, what? We're not gonna fucking do that. We got work to do. We got work to do. You know, if I'm actually getting dizzy or I'm puking or something, all right, then you may have a point. You know, maybe I'll stop for a minute or two and then I'll get my ass moving again. But, you know, it's just, you need to, I don't want this to drag on too long, so I'll just get to the point. You need to carve out the idea out of your brain that failure is an option by repeatedly denying failure. And if your brain is wanting you to quit, but you're going anyway, that's winning. That's what you want to do. Your shit should be hard enough to where your brain is screaming at you to quit. But then that's your opportunity. That's the opportunity you seize to make progress by denying those desires, by denying that signal from your brain, that like desperate scream for you to stop. By denying that, that's where you make progress, and that's how you rewire your brain to just deny failure. All right. I guess if there's one more thing I want to talk about, it's like passion and love. Okay, it's another kind of mindset. Okay. Like, if what you're doing, see, here's the thing. Your brain is not gonna, like, make what you're doing feel good if you're not really passionate about it, okay? And this is another way, you know, I ran a marathon. If it were if it were like some 100-mile bike race or something, I would probably not, maybe, I don't know, I haven't been biking in a while, but I'll just, for the sake of this, like, for the sake of like articulation, I'll just pretend I hate biking. Okay, like if it were biking, I had to do some 100-mile bike race, I had to train for that, I probably just wouldn't have that much vigor. I probably just wouldn't have as much relentlessness and ruthlessness during the race because it's just not something I really care about. And it's kind of like with homework, for example. People don't think of homework in the same way they think of a sport they like, right? In a sport you like, you find it meaningful, so your brain, it's going to mobilize dopamine, it's going to mobilize adrenaline, you know, it's going to make you, you know, mobilize testosterone, make you willing to go through pain and discomfort to get what you want because your brain has designated it as important. But if it's like homework or something for some crap you're never going to use, your brain's just like, you know, that's where like that, you know, discipline comes in. It's like your brain is like, dude, what are we even doing? This is so pointless. Like, okay, and so my point is you need to find something you genuinely love and you're genuinely passionate about. Okay, like. And you know, that's not like weak or something. You think like Usain Bolt, you think the guy hates sprinting or something? Like, no, obviously, like, there's no way you can do something like that without at least liking it an itty bitty bit. You know what I mean? Like, varsity cross country runners, okay? You think they're choosing the thing they absolutely hate the most and then they're like getting on the top of it? No. If you get two people at the same physical level, one hates what they do, but one finds it meaningful and one's passionate about it and one is like willing to put in more to like win. You know, obviously the one who's passionate about it and the one who loves it is going to reign successful, you know? And that's the thing. You got to find something that you're passionate about. Find something that you really love and find a big goal that is like the culmination of that love and the culmination of that passion and go tackle it. All right. So, I mean, to sum it up, I suppose I'll end it here. I'll sum up every single thing I've said, or at least the stuff that I remember. I'm a completely normal ass person, you know. And you know, you're a normal ass person, I'm a completely normal ass person, and yet I could do this. I'm not built different, I don't have some silly warrior gene. I had a plan. I erected steps part of it. God, I'm saying that word a lot. I made a plan. I made a bunch of steps of that plan, and I executed these little bits. I intelligently analyzed and interpreted information from every one of those steps to augment and modify my performance in the other steps. And I was very patient, and over a very long time with these small steps, I finally accomplished this goal. You know, and it's really just that simple. Again, that's another thing, or that's another thing I spoke about. Just the simplicity of it. It's not some crazy exciting ass thing, you know. It's simple. It's kind of boring sometimes, okay? And that's the part that, you know, it's never shown on social media. But like, nobody is gonna want to watch a 4-hour marathon. If somebody recorded themselves doing a 4-hour, you know, that's why like the 100 meter, like that's like the most popular event in track and field for people to watch, okay? Ones that are fast, okay? But you gotta understand, it's really simple. You just make a plan, and you learn about your subject, make a plan, get a goal in mind, execute the steps of these plans, intelligently analyze the information, intelligently analyze the performance from each of these steps, glean information from it, use that information as a weapon in these other steps and improve your performance more and more and more. It's really just that simple, and that formula is precisely what I used to run a marathon at 15 years old. And another thing about that, like, as far as the records go back, as I've found, and if I'm wrong about this, I'd love to be corrected because I really want to know this. I believe I am literally the youngest person to run the Spokane Marathon in all of history. In 58 years it's ran, and I am the very first 15-year-old to run it. And it's just that basic formula I use. And then, you know, another thing I said, how important intelligence is. It's not just running in there balls blazing. You need to be able to intelligently analyze your performance, okay? You need to be able to glean information. You need to see what's going right, what's going wrong, how we can fix certain things, how that might affect other things, you know. You need to think outside the box, you know, like what I was doing. It's like, one of the ways I've thought outside the box during some of these runs is I started running along rivers. So when I was doing like training in the summer, it's very hard to do distance training in the summer. So I would not do my long run until it was cloudy or it was raining or it was especially cold, and then I would make routes. I would design routes specifically along rivers and along like trails with water fountains. You know, stuff like that. Not just physical performance, but like outside the box stuff that can augment your performance. And it takes intelligence to do that, okay? And then mindset. You need to be fucking invigorated by challenge. You need to not, you know, see challenge and cower. You need to see challenge and see like, yeah, that right there, that's why I'm doing this. That challenge right there, that mountain that I'm climbing, that hill at the 22-mile mark, that shit right there, that's why I'm doing this. You need to go out, you need to wish for rain, wish for snow, wish for heat, wish for wind. You need to go out there and you need to see that and be fucking lit on fire by that. Not cower and think, oh, that's my excuse for the day. No, motherfucker, that's the reason why I'm gonna go out and do this, because it's raining. I do it in spite of the challenge. I do it in spite of these random circumstances, in spite of the people telling you you can't, in spite of the rain, in spite of the snow, the freezing temps. You need to be invigorated by that, all right? That is one of the most important things. You know, people, they just, I think, you know, I feel like some people, they just break down too easily. You know, they think, oh, well, it's raining out. You know, I would never go on a run right now. It's raining. You know, no, motherfucker. People just look for excuse after excuse after excuse. Okay, if it wasn't raining outside, you'd make some bullshit about how it was too windy or something. Or how, well, I trained my arms yesterday, so I don't feel like going for a run. Like, it doesn't matter what it is, you're always gonna have an excuse. So if that excuse is always there, learn to be fucking invigorated by it. Learn to be lit on fire by that, not scared by it. Okay, and that's the mindset, that's truly a mindset that like separates, you know, the losers and the winners, right? You know, when shit hits the fan, when shit gets hard, when shit gets unexpected, when you got to start adapting on the spot, people will break down, okay? But, you know, I think someone like me will look at that and they'll be, you know, they'll look at the weather forecast when they go for a run and they'll be wishing for rain. They'll be wishing for the heat. They'll be wishing for shit to hit the fan so that way they have something to be invigorated by. Like, you know, that's one of the reasons I run barefoot. I'll purposely run through like these horrible rocky trails that just hurt like hell. Okay, but I'll purposely do that just so I can be invigorated by that. Just so I have something to like, you know, defy, just so I have something to rebel against, something to say no to, right? It's like these challenges are put in place to stop me, and some people think, oh, well, the system's against me, it's, well, no, you should look at the system and think, really? Really? This is what you got? This is the system that's put in place to try and ward me, to try and make me curl up into a ball and be scared? This is what you got? You're gonna have to do a lot more than that to put me down. Let's fucking go. You know, that's the mindset you gotta have. But anyway, and then there's, you know, passion and love. You know, be passionate about what you do, love what you do. Make sure what you do is meaningful. Make sure that you know at the end, at the finish line, that you're gonna be grateful and you're gonna be feeling righteous at the end. All right. And that's what I got. That's what I got. You know, there's maybe some stuff I missed, but off the top of my head, the most important stuff, you know, that's how I ran a marathon at 15 years old. By using mindset, by using intelligence, by being invigorated, by loving what I do, by, you know, intelligently designing the environment in which I work, you know. That's what I got. Thank you.